All right. You'll all have to hit the got it, and you should be good to go.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, welcome everyone to Gilcrest Neighborhood Council. It's good to have everyone. My name's Josh Stewart, and James Payer is, we're going to be co-hosting tonight. So it's nice to have everyone. Let's see. First of all, we want to introduce a couple of new members of the team on our community liaisons. Eric Dyer and Marguerite Henderson. Let's see. Are you on there, Eric and Marguerite? They're logged in yet. Let's see them on the list. But they will be joining as community liaisons.
Yeah.
And maybe when they get on, we'll have them introduce themselves.
Are they on yet? They're not on yet, right?
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're on yet.
Okay, so we'll keep moving.
Let me. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we'll also wanted to give some time, first of all, to let's see, to Todd and Leslie Boren, and I think maybe they're going to talk to us about Christmas in the Glen.
Sure.
If you don't
Thank
mind,
you.
Todd, tell us a little bit about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agreed to come on and just briefly mention that as in prior years, there will be a nativity in the Glen, and the nativity will take place on Tuesday evening, November 29th, between 6 and 9 p.m. It will feature live animals, villagers, and a major scene. And as a reminder, it's an interfaith event, so there'll be actors and others engaged from various faiths. As a reminder for those who don't know, the Bonneville Glen is located on 1500 East at about 1050 South, so just between 10th and 11th South. Setup for the activity will take place largely on Tuesday, the 29th of November. And hopefully we have some good community support. We have in past years, and hopefully that will return again this year. Any questions?
No, it's a great highlight of the Christmas season. I really enjoy it. So thanks, Todd, for helping put it on.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Hope to see you all there if you can make it.
Yeah, that's good. And are they going to be collecting food for the?
Oh, that's a good point. There will be food donations collected, and also if others choose to donate money, there will be information there as to where to donate the money.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, awesome. Looking forward to it. And the snow's getting us in that Christmas season, so
yeah. Hopefully lots of snow.
Lots of snow. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Todd. With that, I'd like to turn some time over to Paul Schulte from Auxiliary Services with Salt Lake City School District. We're grateful to have Paul come on this evening. Paul, are you there? Let me see, make sure.
I am.
Oh, there's Paul. Okay,
Paul,
great.
yeah, I unmuted him. He's good to go.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Paul's going to talk to us a little bit about some studies they're doing on West High and Highland High School, and what's happening down there with these high schools. They're getting older, I think, and are looking to make some improvements, some renovations, and doing some public outreach, I think, at this point. So, Paul, maybe I'll just turn the time over to you and let you just talk about those projects, and then maybe just leave a little bit of time for some questions.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having us on. We're really prioritizing community engagement, so this is a great opportunity. I've been to probably about 20 school community councils, several. The city hosts one for the community council chair. So we've been out and about, and we actually value this a lot. So we appreciate the invitation. So what we're doing is we have a feasibility study being conducted both at West High School and Highland High School. West is 100 plus years old now, and Highland's 78-ish, right in there. And so the board has tasked us with hiring the architects. The architect for West High School is VCBO. The architect at Highland is Naylor, Wentworth, and Lunn. And again, we're not, these architects are not hired to do the construction documents yet, but they're primarily hired to help us look into the possibility, where could we possibly build these schools? The schools will remain on the same campus. That's one bit of misinformation that's out there on certain different situations. So we want to be clear that we're looking at rebuilding on the same campus. We are looking at rebuilding right now. Everything's on the table. There's no particular location. That's what the study is to ascertain where, if we were to do this, where could we stage it and how could we stage it? So that's part of the process. The second part of the process is the board is considering conducting a bond, going out to bond, potentially as soon as a year from now, the next election. And so we're also we have a really heavy lift with trying to figure out how big the schools would need to be for the student body and what would be the associated costs. One of the big challenges with bonds is sometimes by the time the bond passes, they don't have enough funds. And sometimes when the schools are built, they're already too small. So we have a big lift in trying to just hit that sweet spot, making sure we're getting the school that we need. We're asking for the appropriate money, but not too much, and being very responsible to our bosses, which are all the taxpayers. And so that's conducting right now. We've been meeting with staff members, children, parents of these two communities at length. We've conducted quite a few meetings. We had a public meeting in September. We'll have another one coming up next week, November 9th at West High, and November 10th at Highland. And the architects will just kind of walk everyone through about how far we've come. Now, if you have students, you may have students that attend to East, but if you have students that attend West or Highland, or you're alumni of either one, for that matter, if you have parents that are alumni or connections with any of these schools, there's surveys on the district website. We're trying to get as much feedback and understanding how people feel about the schools, what are the important things that resonate with the different community members. So those are on the district website, and you can go and fill those out if you have a connection currently or in the past. We want to just hear as much as we can. But our goal is we'll have another community meeting with both areas in January, and we're tasked with presenting probably 2 options, maybe 3, of what we think where the building would be located, or what would be the best option. Like I said, 2 or 3 options. We wouldn't be deciding on the final one. And then potential costs that we could present to the board so they could start discussing, do they feel like they should go out to a bond next year? If they do vote to go out to a bond, then you kind of pivot. We would hire, the district will hire a counselor, because there's some different specific legislation and laws that are associated with how you can conduct a bond, and also a consultant that would help the district kind of walk through getting the word out and educating people the need for the bond, what it would be invested in. Okay. If the bond would pass next year, then we would pivot pretty quickly and start working immediately on the actual construction documents. So at that point, we'd have to decide, okay, we're going to pick option A or option B. And it takes about a year to do the construction documents. And then, so now that would take us up to about November of 24. And so then it would go out to bid. Just ignore that. That's my children trying to FaceTime me in the middle of the meeting. And it's my birthday today, so they're all calling.
Oh, it is also. Well, you're so nice to be on here with us. Thanks.
Oh, they've been spoiling me all week, so we're great. Okay. And so the documents take about a year to do, and then it would go out to bid. And that, these are large buildings. These are right around 400,000 square feet. So it take about, 4 or 5 months to bids to come in. So you could look at like the beginning, the spring of 25, you could potentially be breaking ground. Could be, if everything, like if the stars really align, it could be as soon as 2 more years after that, 2 years construction. But that also depends on how you would stage it and how you would go about building it. Okay. So it's, pretty complex process, and we're just at the genesis, really at the organic start of the process. And the reason we're doing this way, and I really want to, applaud the board to allowing us to do this, so we can be thoughtful and really approach this the most effective way and be great stewards of our resources for the community members and our taxpayers.
Okay. Well, can I pause you right there, Paul? And maybe we just have a few minutes for questions before we have go to our next topic. But I wanted to open it up. James, are you watching the chat and see if there's questions for Paul on the chat?
I did. There is no new chat questions at the moment.
Okay. Well, let me. Dan Dugan has a question, and
just reiterating, sure. The feasibility study's got a public meeting on Wednesday the 9th at West. It's from 6 to 7 p.m.
Correct. And then in the library.
The 10th from 6 to 7 p.m. at the Highland Library. So the
Correct.
9th at 6 to 7, and the 10th 6 to 7 p.m.
Yes, and we encourage everyone to come out. More accurate information we can get out there, the better we are. And it's quite interesting. This is probably one of the largest projects I've ever been involved in my career.
So this is like a 7 to 10 year project, you're thinking? So completion?
Well, do the math. So a year, next year is the bond, another year. Yeah, about 6 to 7 years. If everything aligns, really how you stage things can really impact how long it takes to to build the school. You have tighter campuses, skylines. The project has gone on for a number of years because they just had a lot of the challenges with the tighter campus, where Cypress had new property and stuff out there, so that one went a little more streamlined. We really think we can. We don't know any of the details now, but just kind of starting to work on this and putting pencil to paper, feel like we can keep, the kids in the building while building another building. We might have to take down parts of it, obviously, at a time, but that's our goal, is to try to, but it could be, have to be in portables a little bit, but we want to be as proficient as we can, so we don't displace the campus or disrupt the campus for extended amount of time. Try to minimize that, but obviously we want to build a great school.
So are you considering anything like Ogden High School, where they kept the school and did a major restoration project as well? I mean, it was kind of an architectural gem up in that community.
Right.
Is that one of the studies that's being considered for like West High?
Absolutely. So what's happening at West is that the architect, in fact, and if you can't get to it, they're both streamed also on YouTube. So you can be watching your favorite ball game and still watch us if you can't get there. But they're being streamed. And Wes is going to, the architects, VCBO, will be going over that kind of a matrix of how they're going to evaluate cost, learning environment, displacing children in the process of considering their options.
Okay.
And I just hit 3. They'll go in detail what the matrix are. And our goal is to come back by January to kind of say, okay, this is how this option might be considered, and is it very valuable? Is it possible or not? So yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Well, just one comment, maybe the McGillis School was an older school over on 13th East.
Yeah, no, right where it is.
They recently renovated and then added on, and just did a wonderful job, I think. Very architecturally sensitive restoration and addition. So great example.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. The challenge we have is with the mechanical systems themselves, as I think maybe some of you are aware of. And this is where one of the matrix that'll go into that. Again, I want to be clear, everything's on the table right now. But we also adopted the sustainability resolution. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Back in 2020, the goal is 2040. So by 2030, all of our energy that we consume, we want it to be clean. And by 2040, we want to be carbon neutral as a district. So we have to, as we look at the systems and what type of systems could be incorporated into, these different buildings, we have to take that in consideration too. So that's what that matrix will come out. They're, going to put all those things into consideration. So I will pass that along to the architects. These architects all know each other. They might be familiar with it, but I'll be visiting. I visit with them every week, so I'll pass that on. That's great information. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other comments or questions for Paul? But we've just got a couple of minutes here with Paul. So,
and if you get an epiphany, send me an email. Shoot it off. You can find me on the webpage. But yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Right.
I'll unmute Dan.
Any other comments?
I asked.
Okay. I guess we got everybody muted, so it'd be hard for him to ask.
I took care of it.
Okay.
Well, I asked him to unmute. He has to unmute himself. Dan?
Yeah.
There, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You good, Josh?
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. Yeah, we can turn the time over to you, Dan, for your report. Well, it's always good to have you with us.
All right. Thank you very much for letting me have the time here. I have to jump somewhere else here. I have another meeting. Our meeting changed around here because of the election.
Oh.
We're not meeting on the 2nd or the 8th. So we're meeting on the 10th next week also. And that's our new council meeting just for November the 8th and the 22nd this year. Just a reminder, drop off your ballots by the 7th, right? If you want to vote in person, you can vote in person on the 8th, but make sure you postmark it by the 7th. I just returned from a Railvolution, which is a conference, annual conference held in different cities across the United States. And it's mostly on transportation and mobility. So it was a good discussion on, I was talking about bus lanes, BRTs, mobility hubs, transportation-oriented or transit-oriented districts or communities. So it's really a great time to get educated and kind of on what other cities are doing in these different avenues. So there are members from the city council were there, our RDA, our community engineers, and from all across the United States. So I'm probably going to bring together the people that went down there and kind of get a good feel for some actions we can take in Salt Lake City from what I learned down there and this was in Miami.
Oh, nice.
So it was a good conference. On the homeless side of the house, we're still big conversations with the state and the county on the challenges with the mental illness, and also just housing the homeless and housing the unsheltered and housing the vulnerable population. And we have some grant funding going out to provide some wraparound service, permanent supportive housing, wraparound services. Once the winter overflow shelters close down in May, they'll be able to open up, and hopefully some of them will be opened up earlier so we can house some of the people in more permanent shelters. And there's a couple locations that are looking to receive grant money to take a gap from what they have now. But those conversations are going on. And this also involves the state legislators and trying to get more funding for the vulnerable population. The affordable housing overlay, you're all well aware of that. I'm still haven't seen much. Lynn and I spoke a little bit about that today. That's still got to go through the planning stages. It's still got the working group going on right now. So I think that is a good time. Everyone I think has already provided a bunch of comments and concerns and also some suggestions. I'm really kind of waiting for that to all blend out before I look at it. I haven't seen anything from them except from what you've already inputted. And I think we all have similar concerns in that department. Now it's up to the planning to take all those concerns and wrap them around. The working group that they have helping them out, they're not a decision-making body. They're just more of a, trying to corral all the concerns together and then working with the city and then send it to the planning department. I don't see that coming around and probably until the new year. With the Christmas breaks and the limited number of meetings, they probably won't see us for a little bit. And that goes for the same thing for the resource centers. I know they're also working on that. We gave them a shotgun on the resource centers. They're working feverishly on that. I haven't seen anything from the city on that, and I wouldn't expect anything until I get a transmittal from the city on that subject too. That again is probably going to be early part of the new year. And then that there's, the other side village, we passed that a few weeks ago. I think that's exciting news. It's going to be challenging, but it's also exciting news. And I'm looking forward to moving forward with that program and hopefully seeing some housing starting to go up here, in the next probably springtime once it thaws out. But I'm excited for that project to get moving forward. That's really all I have right now. Is there any questions for me on my end?
Questions from anybody?
If you're muted, you can also send a note on the chat, and then we'd unmute you, or you can just unmute yourself because you have your own control at this moment.
So just maybe for everybody's enlightenment, remind us where the other side village is going to be.
Oh, okay, sure. It's on Indiana Avenue, right near Redwood. So it's the west side. There's right now there's a pilot program, 8-acre pilot program, and they're going to build 60 tiny homes. 54 of those will be for homeless people, for residents. The other 6 will be for the staff. Then they're also going to build 25. It's called a community inn, where they can rent them out on a nightly or weekly basis for people to either visit the area. So there's 85 total units on the 8 acres, but 54 of those units will be for the recently homeless.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And they're going to have.
Is that a public private venture, or is that it's
a nonprofit venture. Okay. We are leasing the land to them at $1 a year, but they have to remediate the land because it's a former landfill, and they're going to remediate that first 8 acres, and then they will have wraparound services. So they will provide the services. They will have I don't want to say DI, a thrift store there. They're looking at having a cookie store there, a cookie manufacturing there, and they're also requiring them to have a small grocery store that provides fresh groceries, not just a convenient type store.
Yeah.
And then they'll have security just as they do right now at the other side academy. And it'll be people will be required to be going through some treatments if they need to, but most of them probably will have some type of wraparound service needs.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
You got muted there, Tom.
Oh yeah.
Try it again, Tom. Sorry, Millie. Good question, Millie. The Other Side Academy is an academy downtown on 7th East and 100 South, and it's for residents incarcerated, both male and female, who were recently incarcerated, and now they're looking to reset their life. It's a clean, sober environment there. But the one thing about the academy is, and they're in a dormitory, I shouldn't say a dormitory, they're like an apartment building. They have jobs, they do some work, but they're also trying to get their life straightened out. And they're doing a good job there with jobs and everything else. But they also have the stick is if they don't do well there and they have troubles, they're going to jail. So there's a big incentive for the other side academy residents to graduate. They have it's like almost a 4-year, I want to say it's probably more than 4 years, but they go freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and they graduate out of a program. Some may take a little bit longer, but there is a almost like a school. You start as a freshman and you go up, and then you get more seniority, more responsibility, more skills to graduate and depart. But they do a wonderful job, and they have some great business opportunities for them, and they've done a wonderful job in that local community. So that's the Other Side Academy. On the west side, it's going to be the Other Side Village, run by the same nonprofit organization. It's just going to be focused on homeless population and getting them the most vulnerable homeless population in a secure environment to hopefully also elevate them, to allow them to have a life, a clean life and in their own place. They could stay there longer. They don't have a graduation at the Other Side Village. They could stay there. They could just continue living there.
Okay.
Not to interrupt, but last night I attended the Avenues Community Council, and they had a representative from the Other Side Academy, someone from their board, do a presentation. So if Yale-Crest is interested in that for a future meeting, just to learn more about their programming and how they operate, I'm sure that I could connect Jan or Josh with the right person.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Lynn, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the first step of anything starts with the letter A. And what most impresses me about this organization is that they make everyone accountable. Accountability is one of the things that's missing in today's city's approach to the homeless shelters. Doesn't seem to be a lot of accountability going around. This organization is impressive that way. I applaud the City Council for approving this, at least as the pilot. I think it's going to teach us a lot about how we can maybe improve on our approach to the homeless centers. Thank you.
I agree, Lynn. We're trying a lot of different methods. We have permanent supportive housing. We have deeply affordable housing. We have a multitude of services out there. We need to try everything, and there's the homeless and the unsheltered have a lot of issues that they have to contend with. Some can't live in apartment buildings. Some have phobias in different areas. They have light phobias. They got sound phobias. They got they can't be close to people. They need their own space. Other people, they have everything imaginable and beyond. So the village is just one of those avenues that can hopefully support these people and then provide them a place to live. And hopefully maybe some of them will leave there and go on to somewhere else. Some may just have to stay there. I've talked to the First Step Housing, which also has a bunch of permanent supportive housing, a lot of mental and drug treatment centers there. They've graduated people, moved them into their own apartment, and immediately the person fell back in his old ways because he couldn't live on his own. But he did so well in the programs at the First Step Housing that they just basically moved him back in there. He goes through the same program, he lives there, but now he's functioning because he has that cocoon of a home at the First Step. He could not, I say he because usually it's men there, he could not do it on his own, but he is functioning at the First Step. Some can graduate and leave, some can't. So we're trying to do it all.
Awesome.
That was well put, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
I think we're ready for Hannah, right?
Yeah, now we're ready for Hannah. Thank you, Hannah, for being here. Thank you, Dan. We'll let you go. See you later. Hey, Hannah, we'll turn the time over to you to update us about the mayor and what you all are up to.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Barton from the mayor's office, for anyone who doesn't know me. I first want to let you all know, I'm sure most of you know at this point, but our outreach team is doing monthly community office hours throughout the city in each district, just to give people a chance to come chat with us in person to make us more accessible. So this month on November 16th, I will be at the Anderson Foothill Library from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. There's also 7 of those community office hours every month. As I said, we do those in each district, but you don't have to live in the district to attend. So if that date on November 16th doesn't work for you, but you still want to talk to a member of the mayor's staff in person, I just dropped a link in the chat so that you can see all of those locations for the month of November. And so you have a chance to come chat with all of us. The next thing that I wanted to update y'all on is the ACE Fund just opened on November 1st, and ACE stands for Arts, Culture, and Events. And that the purpose of that grant fund is to support and grow neighborhood and community events. And those awards range from $500 all the way up to $10,000. So that's a great opportunity to support local events if it's something any of y'all would be interested in applying for. I will drop another link in the chat. I am partial to Zoom meetings because it's so easy to share information. I just dropped the link to the ACE Fund page on the mayor's website, and you'll see that there are 4 in-person information sessions where a member of the mayor's staff, Katie Schnell, she is running the fund. She'll be there presenting information on the fund and answering questions and helping people understand the application process. So there will be information sessions on November 9th, 16th, 21st, and 29th. So lots of opportunities to learn more about that for anyone who's interested. I also wanted to let everyone know that the Department of Community and Neighborhoods, we also call them CAN, Community and Neighborhoods, is inviting residents to submit comments on community development needs in their community. And those comments will help prioritize funding needs for different. Oh, my video got spotlighted. I was like, why can I see myself? Sorry. Those comments will help prioritize funding needs for different community support programs. So there will be an in-person public hearing on that, but there's also a hybrid option. So I will put that information in the chat. That meeting will be on Wednesday, November 16th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the City and County Building. But again, there is a virtual link as well. For if you want to submit comments without attending that hearing meeting, you can just email those to a staff member named Dylan Hayes, and I just put Dylan's email in the chat as well. Lastly, I know that Councilmember Dugan touched on this a little bit already, but the Planning Division is going through the process of amending the Homeless Resource Center zoning. And they are hosting an in-person open house for people to attend and learn more about it and ask questions. That open house will be on Thursday, November 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. And that will be at the Public Safety Building, which is 475 South 300 East. I will put that information in the chat as well. Sorry, I'm really giving you guys a lot of dates and times and meetings here, but want to make sure that you're aware of all these opportunities to engage. The Planning Division on the Homeless Resource Center zoning amendments, they also did a Q&A session on Facebook Live earlier this week, and they recorded that and posted it on the city's YouTube channel. And that's a really helpful video to watch to hear more about that process and what the next steps are, and hear what other questions people are asking that might be similar to the questions that you're thinking about. So I just included the link to that YouTube video. I think it's about 50 minutes, but it's really comprehensive and helpful to understand this process. So hopefully you all can use that as a good resource. That is all I have today, I think. Again, sorry, that was a lot of dates and times, but does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Give us maybe an example of what a community development grant might go towards. Like what's an example of like what you've seen in the past maybe?
Sure, yeah, so that could go to like a job training program or behavioral health services or even some type of housing resource. So they're a pretty wide usage there, and the community development block grants are like a major funding source for the city, for the county, all levels of local government. And so they support a lot of important programs already, but I think they're interested in hearing feedback of if certain programs that are already in existence need more support, or if maybe there's a program that doesn't exist that we need to create.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from folks?
Remember, her links are in the chat. You can click on the chat and then highlight him and hit Control Copy or hit Edit Copy, and you can paste them anywhere and reference them on, or put them into your browser, and then you can look at the website.
Oh yeah, good. Thanks, James.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I hopefully that's all easy enough to navigate. And I will just go ahead and put my contact information in the chat as well for anyone who doesn't have it, my cell phone and email number. Oh, wow, my cell phone number and my email, just to make sure you all feel like you can reach out to me at any time with questions or concerns. I'm always here to help.
Yeah, Jan put in the chat, we've asked Carly and Amy to submit grants for the 4th of July, the yard sale, and the Easter egg hunt. So
oh, great.
Those are
okay.
some local examples, I guess, where we've been using some of that funding.
Yeah, for the ACE fund. Yeah, that'll be great.
Right.
Actually, if I could make a suggestion, community councils are kind of an important city area interactions to formulate interactions among themselves to present to the city. They need support. There's no funds to run these community councils at all. And we're so fortunate to have this Zoom offered by our Salt Lake Library system. That's really helpful because, by the way, there are no meeting rooms in District 6 other than Anderson Library, and all those slots are generally taken already. So I'm surprised you got one, actually. That's a program that needs to be supported. It used to be many years ago, but it's been a couple administrations now that that have offered nothing, and they need funds to just do the work they do.
Sure.
So that's something that I think should be suggested as a community block grant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and the mayor's office has a pot of money to support community councils. I think in the past was called the Community Grant Fund or something along those lines. And we're making a couple of changes to that program, but hoping to get it rolled out soon. And so that will be an opportunity for community councils to access funds for administrative costs or events or other things like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Hannah. We appreciate your time and all your good things you guys are doing.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. We also have tonight, we have Jennifer Reed with University of Utah, who's going to talk to us a little bit about student housing. And Jennifer, if
she's good to go.
You're good to go?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks
Hi,
so much
Jen.
for having me. Hi. Thanks for having me. It's great to see so many people here tonight. So it's a good crowd.
Well, thanks for being here.
So is it possible then for me to share my screen? Am I?
Yep.
Great.
Yes.
All right, let me get that going. I'm going to talk about the West Village Graduate and Family Housing Project going on Sunnyside. And all right, can you see that all right, everybody?
Yes.
Great. So I think just a reminder that the family and grad housing along Sunnyside is one parcel of land where the University of Utah is housing their family and their students with families and their single graduate students. We have 3 different properties that our Department in Auxiliary Services manages, and that's the West Village site. There's a site east of Foothill Boulevard in the Research Park area called the East Village. And then the medical towers, the 2 14-story towers that were built in 1970 and 71 as well. Just as a recap for folks that do not know, and I apologize, I'll introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Reed with the University of Utah, and I'm the Associate Vice President of Auxiliary Services there. So what we're building right now that you see the large project going up in the West Village site is replacement housing for students with families and single graduate students. We have been closing courts and apartments in the West Village over the last 4 years in preparation for this new housing project. We obtained a bond for about $126 million. And so this is a self-funded project through the University of Utah. And we're building 504 apartments with that money. And interior to those large buildings that are going up on the corner there's large outdoor courtyards with playgrounds, some community gathering space that's much better for the students than what we had previously. It will be available all day versus just in the evenings. It's community kitchens as well, and vending. Their laundry services will be included in their rent. And then we've got some study space and multi-purpose space that we didn't have in the previous housing built in the 1960s and 70s. We're currently on target to open on time next August. August 1st, 2023 is when we'll likely see students start moving in to these apartments. I think one of the things we wanted to address tonight is we had a question about the rendering that was shared, and I think multiple renderings have been shared over the course of the beginning of the project. But the rendering that was shared that was submitted by Jacobson Construction and VCBO, the team that's working on this design build project, and how the landscaping plan has changed since this initial rendering. So I think there was some confusion that this area potentially was adjacent to Sunnyside. And can you see my cursor there, Josh? So that
yes, we can see.
Okay, great. So that this area was adjacent to Sunnyside. And actually the orientation of this rendering is that this area to the right is adjacent to Sunnyside, and this is Research Park in this area. So I apologize that there was any confusion on the directionality of this original rendering that they submitted with their response to the RFP. This area where courts are currently being abated, hazardous materials abatement is going on, and these courts will come down, is going to be some surface parking in addition to an interior green space that will remain in the village. And I'll move ahead to another rendering that was in the response that we've shared out. And this is also a view of Sunnyside. So as you see the buildings coming up, and particularly the final building that they're putting up the structure adjacent to Sunnyside right now, this is the finished product here. But again, this rendering included a potential landscape plan. This city landscaping along our portion of the 9-line trail remains, will be desertscape. We are not changing the landscaping in that area, but the landscaping adjacent to the building has changed slightly now that they were awarded the project, and their landscape architect was able to come up with a plan. But the building design has not changed from this. This is another rendering that they submitted with their response. And this large paseo here will also act as a fire lane. This lane is going east to west between the building that's along Sunnyside and then that center building of the three. Again, this will be a fire lane, but also a place where people can program activities and come in from the different parking areas. I think primarily there was interest in the landscape plan, and I just want to address some of the changes that have been made since Jacobson and VCBO were awarded the project. Obviously, I've talked with this group, many of you, even separate from the neighborhood council meeting, regarding the removal of the mature trees that ended up being required because of site grading that they did not expect that they had to do. So we were unable to keep almost all of the mature trees on the site, and that was different than what was originally submitted by Jacobson and VCBO. We've also changed the location of the central plant, and near the top of this image, and this was just taken with a drone on October 31st, so this is about consistent with where they are today since the major storm. We've got a large central plant to the north here of these three buildings. That plant was actually located in this area, I believe, with their original submission. And we did change some of the routing of the utilities after their original submission. And so that plant has changed, and the size of that plant is actually a little larger than what we expected. let's see, utility relocation. Again, this we made some changes to the utilities in this area. We'll still have a basketball court on top of some of the electrical in this area, but it has changed slightly from their original plan. And then since they were awarded, their landscape architect developed a final landscape plan that was not. I wouldn't say it varies too much from what they showed in the renderings, but we had the opportunity to help select plant types, make sure that we were consistent with university standards for water use and tree types, make sure we're putting a variety of trees in versus one or two types that may be susceptible to disease. And like we've seen in some of our village trees over the last 2 decades, where we've lost some of them to disease and storms, of course, as like all of us know in this neighborhood. The overall landscape plan, and I apologize, this is a little small, but I just wanted to give you an idea. Obviously, we're replacing trees per University of Utah standard 2:1. So while we took out numerous trees, we are putting trees 2:1 back on the West Village site. And some of the interior trees and some adjacent to the buildings, we specifically requested because larger trees needed to be removed, that they bring in higher caliper trees than what is usually the university standard. So we're going to be bringing in some more expensive trees for the interior in the hopes that we get that shade a little quicker than we would with the smaller trees. I'll zoom in on, or I have the next slide zooms in on the landscape plan adjacent to Sunnyside Avenue. So you can see versus the rendering that I showed you earlier that they submitted with the RFP. There's 4 trees here in the front of building C. This area here is community space that has large windows, and they've opted not to put trees in front of those windows in the landscape plan. But there is no lawn going in. I know we showed a lot of lawn, or they showed a lot of lawn on that original rendering. At the university, we prefer that we're not landscaping with lawn unless it's useful play areas for the children or play fields. Obviously, it's a water use issue, but we did not want a large grass area adjacent to the parking here. So there's going to be shrubbery and trees, but no lawn like you had seen in the original rendering.
Where will those shrubberies and trees be? They'll be where?
So right
Oh,
here.
just right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
just right here
That's it,
and along this front. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
So that's my last slide.
Thank you.
I was asked as well to address the I think Jan requested that I address the plans for or recent announcements from the university on the creation of additional housing on campus. And I'm happy to address that as I can. Obviously, in my position in auxiliary services, I'm part of a lot of meetings, but I'm not developing the president's strategy, and I don't want to I don't want to speak for him. But what I do know is that the university's intent is to increase the number of on-campus housing that we offer to students. Our demand right now outpaces the number of beds that we're providing, particularly for the undergraduate students. And so we're looking right now at the feasibility of an additional 2,000 beds on main campus that would primarily serve freshmen and undergrads because of the demand. But how that all plays out and the timing of that is to be determined. But I think President Randall has made it clear that his intent is to grow the on-campus population as the individual responsible for commuter services. I am glad to hear that there will be less commuting in single occupancy vehicles by students if we can get those beds built. because that's an important goal of ours. And I think I saw a question in the chat related to the rest of the older apartments in the village. It is our intent to close the remaining courts in the East and West villages over the next 8 years. Those will be phased closures to prevent pushing too many students out to market at once, if that's what they determine to do, versus be housed in the family housing that we're building now. But the utility infrastructure for those units is well beyond its useful life, and they do not meet seismic code, which is a great concern.
None of us do.
We did.
Yeah, no kidding.
We did let students know in 334 apartments a couple of weeks ago that we're closing their buildings next August. So the 2 medical towers are closing August of 2023. And those are definitely in the worst shape of any of the buildings that we're managing now. We have many apartments that are unlivable there because of the plumbing at this point. And so, and then we announced the closure of 3 more courts in the West Village, the 100 court, the 200 court, and the 700 court. And 2 of those courts, the 100 and 200, are the original buildings built in 1960 that we refer to as the Aspen buildings that don't have air conditioning. They're really uncomfortable in the summer now, and we don't have the electrical capacity to put window units in all of those and keep the buildings running. So those are coming down as well next August.
Okay. So we're about out of time, Jen. Just maybe if there's a couple of questions,
Yeah.
Do you mind taking just a couple of questions? Lynn,
Of course.
do you have a question? Oh, but can we unmute Lynn there? Let's see. Unmute.
Appreciate the
People
landscaping
are-
designs.
Go ahead. People are
Yeah,
capable of unmuting themselves.
I appreciate the landscaping designs, but I think it would be very beneficial to have trees along that fence line, on the inside of that fence line. It gives you privacy and more shade along that city byway on that sidewalk. That area gets really hot. Second thing that I'm very concerned about is this entryway that you showed from Sunnyside into the right near the Foothill Boulevard. And I just wanted to identify, I take that road all the time, those 2 roads, and people come around off of Foothill onto Sunnyside very, very quickly, coming off the hill up Immigration Canyon. Even though we have speed limits, they're coming off at a high speed, and an entryway right there, and they're using it right now, of course, for building as well, is very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and we won't have the cones to protect the residents there. So if you could take a look at that, move the entrance down farther. It gives more space for people safely to enter that facility. That's a very dangerous corner. I would encourage landscaping right next to that fence. Doesn't look like you have any ground space there, but it would provide a lot more shade there. South and west sides are very hot, and that would be really wonderful to have some trees there. I would say that's very important. But anyway, thanks for sharing this. I thought there were going to be 5 buildings actually in phase 1. I'm encouraged there's only 3. And you did adhere to pretty much 3 stories on the Sunnyside Avenue side, which I also greatly appreciate. And it's reduced, you regraded and lowered the buildings along Foothill. And I think that's an added benefit, frankly. Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I always appreciate your feedback.
A couple of questions, Jen. How much parking should you said that you're going to tear down some buildings and add surface parking? How much parking should we anticipate? How many acres of parking?
I can't give you the acreage, Josh, and I should be able to, because I've seen it so many times. I apologize, but the surface lots are really going to be on the footprint of where those courts are now. And so if you come into the village, they're not going to be much larger than the footprint of the current 300 and 600 courts.
Will you keep the trees that are there?
that most of the trees are going to come down interior to the courts, but we've actually, just in the last couple of weeks, I asked them to move the surface lot design on the west side to save some of the trees adjacent to Sunnyside. So near the main office and those hills, it looks like we could save those trees, but interior to the courts, we won't be able to. The ratio we're looking at for parking right now is about 0.5 stalls for our single graduate students, that building, and about 1.6 stalls for the family. That'll probably go down to 1.4. Our target is to reduce that 1.6. But we're building to what our current demographic needs are, so that we're not pushing them out into the neighborhood. What we heard,
is that like 600 park or 750 parking spaces?
No, there's 504 units, and 280 of those are single grad. So there's only 140 units for the 280 building, and then, like I say, the 285 I think is a 1.6 ratio.
Okay. So do you know how many spaces then that you're going to build?
Well, I could do the math quick, but I've got a design. So Josh, I'm happy to send you that information.
I think it's it's a simple calculation that I think could be shared.
Yep. You bet.
Yeah, it seems like a little afraid to share it. Maybe
no, it's a 1.6 for the family apartments, which is 285 apartments, and 0.5 for the 280 apartments. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're 400 something, 500 spaces. Yeah, that's quite a few. All right. One other question I had heard that the cost of this new housing is significantly higher than what was there before. That these students are going to be paying quite a bit more for these new apartments. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. The draft rental rates that we have now are considerably higher than what they're paying now. Our rental rates right now are about 50% below market. So but we do not have any debt on the current properties. I'll definitely take responsibility for the low increases over the last decade. That's largely been my responsibility to request increases on the rent. And I really felt like with the quality of housing that we were providing, we should not increase it higher than what we have, which I think 3 or 4% is the highest increase we've ever done there annually.
So the new housing will be quite a bit more then?
The new housing will be quite a bit more. We've got that $126 million bond that we're going to pay for, and we're in line with what Housing and Residential Education is charging for their rooms and their beds without a meal plan. So all of our apartments have kitchens, and so, but yeah, it's a lot more, and it's
that's unfortunate for the students.
It is very difficult.
Yeah, I know Governor Cox, he's trying to freeze the tuition costs, but if they have to pay that much more for housing, that'll be
which
tough.
is why we have so many students renting in our neighborhood.
Yeah,
it's true.
Interesting.
So we have a few more questions, but we're also running out of time. So
Josh, we got one more.
Let's rapid fire.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's go. We've got. I think. Let's see. We're out of time with Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. We appreciate you coming and sharing.
No problem. And please email me. I'm available in the university directory against Jennifer Reed. I'm happy to respond to questions just if you send them to me directly as well. But I appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Our final presenter this evening is Will Becker from Transportation Planner. And he's looking at the project Neighborhood Byways. Maybe some of you in the neighborhood have seen these signs scattered around. You're wondering, what is that? And so we've invited Will Becker to maybe answer those questions for us. So Will, turn some time over to you. Maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us about the project.
Sure. Thanks for having me to your meeting this evening. I'm Will Becker. I'm a transportation planner with Salt Lake City Transportation and the project manager on this neighborhood byway project. So I'm here basically just to try to answer questions, explain what the project is. I know neighborhood byways might not be a totally familiar concept. We have kind of just started rolling out the neighborhood byway program. And so we're, not a lot of them throughout the city at this point. So it's something that we're out trying to do a little bit of education on, better explain what the goals and idea behind the neighborhood byways are. So hopefully I can explain that a little bit this evening, and that'll be helpful, and then kind of give you an overview of the project.
Okay.
And timeline.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Like that. So neighborhood byways, really the idea behind them is that we are taking existing residential streets that are already, fairly comfortable and calm, that provide a nice place to walk and bike and get through the neighborhood and connect residents to different destinations within the neighborhood, and also to different potentially different transportation networks as well. So things like bike lanes and transit and other types of active transportation, the other active transportation networks that we have in the city. And so, yeah, again, taking these existing streets that are already nice to walk and bicycle on, and really looking specifically at the intersections themselves where the route may cross over. And that's a big focus that we have for this project, for all neighborhood byway projects, is identifying, what are the busiest streets that the neighborhood byway route is crossing, and what type of safety improvements we can make at those crossings. So, one of the streets that we kind of started with the neighborhood byway project quite a while ago was 600 East. And so if you're familiar with 600 East around Liberty Park, you probably noticed some of the improvements that went on 1300 South, 900 South, 800 South to make that crossing much better for people walking and cycling. Being able to activate a bike signal and get into the park. So that's one example. And then, on 800 South, we put in what are called rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So those lights that pop up and let people know that pedestrians are trying to cross the street, and can be very effective in helping slow down vehicles and let people get across the street. And then bringing the curb lines in, at that intersection as well, and adding a pedestrian refuge island in the middle, along with one of those flashing beacons. So those are the kinds of, and those aren't the only types, but those are the kind of intersection treatments that we'd be looking at for the really busy intersections that have a lot of vehicle traffic, that aren't great to cross right now, especially if you're walking with a family, younger kids or older folks, where it can be challenging to get across those busy streets. And so as one of my colleagues in the transportation division has been calling it, we're taking these routes, looking at the intersections, and then identifying a string of pearls where those intersections are problematic, and making those safety improvements. So so that's the big thing. We also were just looking at whether or not there's speeding issues or traffic volume issues. Like I said, they're already generally pretty calm streets. That's why they've been selected. And I guess I should back up and just say that the neighborhood byways were actually identified and adopted in the pedestrian bicycle master plan that was adopted in 2015. And so that's where the it's kind of the starting point for us in terms of looking at these neighborhood byways and starting to implement them. Right now, where we are in the project is we are studying the routes, collecting data, collecting some initial feedback, asking people to provide comments so that we can take those into consideration as we're studying the route in preparation for coming up with those concept designs, which will be the next part of this project, where we identify what the priority intersection improvements or other type of needs might be on the neighborhood byway route. And so that's, so we are just wrapping up that initial comment period right now in that study phase. we wanted to make sure that we left it open through the rest of this week in case anyone at the community council here wanted to provide some additional comments before we close that. So originally we planned on closing at the end of last month, but it's open to
Will, where should
comments
people
the rest of
go
it.
if they have comments? Where should they put
Yeah.
those? Do you have a site? Could you put that in
Yep.
the chat maybe?
Yeah, let me put the website in the chat here, and that has all the information about this specific neighborhood byway project. We're also studying the Kensington Ave neighborhood byway, which this actually connects with at 1400 East in Kensington. And we're also looking at another neighborhood byway on in the West Point Jordan Meadows neighborhood.
Okay.
And so we've got a few we're looking at.
Maybe if it's okay, we could maybe stop and see if there's any questions that people
Great.
have. It looks like Lynn has a question. Lynn, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks. I actually wrote to the website about these, but I think I should identify them for other people to consider. I can see why you chose 1700 East because it looks to be a relatively calm street, but in fact, it's really not. And I'm greatly concerned for cyclist safety here. We have a commercial neighborhood district at 1300 South with huge amounts of patrons that come and park all over the public streets for like 2 blocks from up from that site, and then along east-west corridors as well. And honestly, people are frantic about parking and getting to their places or to food places, and it's very dangerous. We have so many people who drive through the stop sign, even on the 4 corner stop sign. It's very concerning to me. I live very close to here and I see lots of near miss accidents. And so I'm concerned about the fact that even though the road looks like it might be calm and wide enough, when you have cars parked on both sides and you have a bike lane and you have two-way traffic, it gets really, really dangerous. Second thing is the speed. We had a CIP funding and actually constructed 2 roundabouts to slow the speed down on this street. And honestly, if cars aren't parked on either side of those roundabouts, people are going 35, sometimes 40 miles an hour down this street. We get a lot of commuter traffic all the way from the country club, Salt Lake Country Club area, and in certain times when I think cyclists who want to use this to go to work are going to find it very difficult. Third thing, Military Drive and 1700 East intersection is another extremely dangerous place, especially in the winter. Cars are always shorting that curve, and a cyclist coming onto them, they may not see and they could get hit. I'm very, very concerned about this. With the cars, they take too much speed going around there and they slide. There's been multiple accidents there. So I'm concerned about cyclist safety. So please avoid that area. LeGrand this is part of the byway. I looked at the map. LeGrand between 900 and Sunnyside is an absolute pothole extravaganza. And I would never try to ride a bicycle on this street. You're going to lose control of your bike. That section, that 1 block section really needs to be repaved.
Yeah, that one might be. Hopefully, that one's on the list of improvements.
That has got to be on the list.
Yeah.
Also, I think you need a hawk light at LeGrand and Sunnyside because you cannot see because of all the cars that are parked in that multifamily housing area on the streets. You cannot see oncoming traffic and you have to get out in the traffic to see it as a car driver. So I'm really concerned about that no safety issue there for cyclists who then have to get across Sunnyside to go then on their merry way. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lynn.
Jan had a question also about why was 1700 East chosen for the Yellcrest Byway when there's a bike lane on 1500 East. And Isaac also seconded that question.
Yeah, so hopefully the description that I provided, can provide a little bit of insight about what the difference between a neighborhood byway and a bike route with a bicycle lane. But let me kind of get into that a little bit more in terms of what the difference would be there. So 1500 East obviously has some nice traffic calming on certain sections of it, and it has a bike lane. But so it provides a nice bicycle route itself, but it wouldn't necessarily be something that we'd be looking at in terms of neighborhood byway, just because the amount of traffic volume on that street, how wide the street is. Again, not that it's not a good bicycle route, but that's a little bit different than, you know, what we're looking at in terms of a neighborhood byway. Like I said, we're focused primarily at the intersection improvements, first and foremost, but then also if there are speeding issues, something that Lynn was just referring to as an issue, traffic volume issues, you know, 1500 East kind of collects a lot of cars that are traveling through the neighborhood so they can get to the collector and arterial streets within the neighborhood. 1700 East is a direct, you know, one of the reasons why 1700 East was selected in terms of like other residential streets in that area is that the route itself, you know, runs, like I said, it kind of jogs up from Kensington and 14th East, takes Emerson over to the Wasatch Hollow Park, and then if you're going from south to north, and then starts on 17th East, going to and then connecting over to Sunnyside Park. It's one of the few streets that, you know, actually runs that full length of the neighborhood there. And so we want to try to provide as kind of direct of a route to connect through the neighborhood there. And like I said, it's well, I realize it's an issue pretty much all over the city that residential streets still have issues with speeding. You know, that's a problem for a lot of residential streets, but having a more narrow street, especially with cars parked on it, is actually helpful in calming vehicle traffic down. That's one of the things that we actually want to see for a neighborhood byway route, whereas 15th East is much wider. Nice tree canopy, obviously, on 1700 East. It's another really nice thing that provides a nice environment for people that are walking, for people that are biking. So these are some of the ingredients that we are looking for. And there's also, as you had referred to, some existing traffic calming on 1700 East at Yale Crest and at Princeton. Now I realize it might not be serving its purpose to the fullest extent that you'd like it to see, but those are the types of treatments, intersection treatments, that we would be looking at. And they do exist on that existing route. So hopefully that kind of explains some of the reasons why the 1700 East is ideal.
Thanks, Will. We're about out of time, but
Yep.
Want to thank you for coming and talking to us. So people can check that website to add additional comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Feel free. Like I said, we're going to leave the survey and the comment map available to leave comments on. So through the rest of the week. So please do that if you haven't already. We'll be evaluating those, and I really appreciate all the engagement and the feedback on this. That's why we're asking now, is because we want to hear what the community is thinking about when we're looking at these neighborhood byway routes. And then also, I just want to mention real quickly in terms of timeline. You know, we're going to be getting into the concept development phase here shortly, and that will kind of go through next spring in terms of when we'll be finalizing those. Right now, this does not actually have funding to put through to go through final design and into construction. So right now we're really just trying to get that concept development plan done, and try to get some funding together to actually be able to make some of the improvements. So I just wanted to kind of clarify what that timeline looks like, and that there aren't actually any funds currently to move beyond that concept development plan.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Will, for being here, and appreciate everybody at the Transportation Department.
Thank you. Thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. And with that, I think we'll adjourn and look forward to seeing people. I believe we'll meet again next month in December. So with that, we'll conclude. And everybody have a good evening, and be safe out there.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.